My name is Mara Collins, and I was 29 when I finally learned that being useful to your family is not the same as being loved by them. At my sister Emily's wedding, her new husband Jason looked me in the eye and told me my place was with the trash. The strange part was not even what he said. It was how quiet everyone became afterward. The vineyard had been glowing all afternoon, the kind of place people describe as magical when they do not know who paid the invoices. White roses climbed the archway. Gold chairs lined the grass in perfect rows. Glasses chimed. A string quartet played something soft and expensive near the garden wall. Half of that day had come out of my bank account. The venue deposit, the photographer, part of the catering, the final florist payment. Emily could not cover when her card declined 2 weeks before the wedding. I had told myself it was worth it because she was my sister. That was the lie I carried into the vineyard. I arrived early with a cream-colored gift box tucked under my arm. Inside was $10,000 in cash, wrapped carefully in tissue paper. It was supposed to be my real gift to Emily, money to help her and Jason start their marriage without drowning in debt. The truth was, I needed that money too. I had been saving it for months, maybe years, depending on how you counted sacrifice. It was supposed to help me move out, replace my dying laptop, maybe finish the certification course I had abandoned when my life got too expensive. But when Emily cried on the phone about wedding costs, I convinced myself that giving it to her would mean something. That she would see me. That my family would finally understand I was not just the daughter who fixed problems quietly. Then I reached the seating chart. My name was not there. At first, I thought I had missed it. I scanned the cards twice, then a third time, smiling awkwardly while guests brushed past me with champagne and perfume and laughter. My cousin Lily, who had not seen Emily in 6 years, was seated in the second row. My father's distant relatives had places near the aisle. But me? Nothing. I found Jason near the bar, surrounded by his friends, laughing too loudly in his tailored suit. He looked like a man who had practiced being admired. "Jason," I said, keeping my voice low, "I think there's a mistake with the seating chart. I don't see my name." He turned slowly, eyes sliding from my face to the gift box in my hands. Then he smiled. Not warmly, not nervously, like he had been waiting for this. "There's no mistake, Mara." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He leaned closer, close enough that I could smell bourbon on his breath. "Your place is in the trash, loser." For 1 second, the whole wedding seemed to stop breathing. An uncle looked away. One bridesmaid froze with her hand over her mouth. My mother, standing only a few feet away, lowered her eyes, as if the grass had suddenly become fascinating. My father adjusted his tie and stared toward the vineyard rows. Emily was nearby, fussing with the edge of her dress. She heard. I know she heard. But she did not turn around. That was the moment something inside me went very still. I did not shout. I did not cry. I did not throw the gift box at him, though later I wished I had at least imagined it harder. I simply walked away. Past the guest tables, past the flower arch, past the catering staff setting out little plates I had helped pay for. I walked through the back gate and into the gravel parking lot, my heels sinking slightly with every step. No one followed me. That part mattered. At home, I sat in the garage with the gift box open in my lap. The stacks of cash looked almost unreal under the bare bulb, neat and silent, and suddenly mine again. For the first time all day, I breathed. Then I drove back to the venue. Not to apologize. Not to beg. Just to make sure Emily understood what silence had cost her. I waited until after they cut the cake. Through the windows, I could see people clapping. Jason had his hand on Emily's waist. My mother was crying happy tears for the photographer. I texted Emily, "Come outside." A few minutes later, she appeared near the side entrance, still smiling like nothing had happened. "Mara, where did you go? Everyone's been asking." "No," I said. "They haven't." Her smile flickered. I handed her the empty box. She looked down. "What is this?" "You were supposed to get something special today." Her fingers lifted the lid. She stared at the empty tissue paper. What was in it? $10,000. The color left her face so quickly, it was almost frightening. Jason came out behind her, still laughing at something over his shoulder. Then he saw me. Then he saw the box. My mother appeared next, phone in hand, already wearing the expression she used when she wanted to control a scene before anyone else could speak. Emily whispered, "You're lying." "I'm not." Jason forced a laugh. "Come on, Mara, don't be dramatic." I looked at him. "You told me where I belonged." His jaw tightened. "It was a joke." No one laughed. My mother stepped forward. "Mara, not today." That almost made me smile. "Not today." As if cruelty had a calendar. Emily clutched the empty box to her chest. "You can't do this. You can't bring money like that and then take it away." "I didn't take it away," I said. "I decided not to give it to people who watched me be humiliated." Jason scoffed. "You're seriously punishing your sister over a joke?" I turned to leave. That was when my mother screamed. Not because Jason had insulted me. Not because Emily had stayed silent. Because the money was gone. I looked back once. My father had come outside too, standing behind them like a shadow that never chose a side. Emily was crying now, but not the way people cry when they regret hurting someone. She looked scared. Cornered. As if she had already spent money she never had. "Mara, wait," she said, stumbling after me in her heels. "Please, you misunderstood him." I opened my car door. He meant it. No, he didn't. He's just like that. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw something I had spent years refusing to see. She was not confused. She was choosing. So I got into my car and drove away slowly, hands steady on the wheel. I was not angry anymore. I was awake. The next morning, I woke up to 17 unread messages and one strange feeling sitting heavy in my chest. Relief. Not sadness, not guilt. Relief. Sunlight leaked through the crooked blinds of my apartment, painting pale stripes across the ceiling. My phone buzzed again, somewhere beneath a pile of laundry on the floor, but I let it ring itself tired before finally reaching for it. The first message was from my mother. "Mara, I cannot believe you embarrassed your sister like that on the most important day of her life. No mention of Jason, no mention of the seating chart, no mention of the fact that her youngest daughter had been publicly humiliated after paying for half the wedding." The next few texts were more of the same. "Family should forgive. You overreacted. Jason was joking. Emily cried all night." One aunt even sent a Bible verse about bitterness. I stared at the screen for a long moment before laughing quietly to myself. Not one person had asked if I was okay. Jason's message came next. "You're lucky Emily still wants you in her life after that stunt." The arrogance of it almost impressed me. Then Emily called. I let it go to voicemail. "Mara." Her voice sounded exhausted, shaky in the dramatic way people sound when they want sympathy more than truth. "I don't know what you think you heard, but Jason was messing around. He jokes like that with everyone. And honestly, bringing up money afterward was really manipulative. Who even does that?" I replayed the voicemail twice. Not once did she say sorry. That was the moment something cold and practical settled into place inside me. I climbed out of bed, opened my laptop, and started building folders. Receipts, invoices, transfers, proof. People forget very quickly when generosity becomes inconvenient. But numbers remember everything. I had screenshots of florist payments Emily begged me to cover after her card declined. Email confirmations from the venue manager thanking me for saving the final balance. Wire transfers, catering invoices. Total wedding cost, $36,420. My contribution, $18,200. Emily and Jason combined, barely over $6,000. The rest came from my parents. I sat back in my chair and stared at the totals. That wedding had cost me nearly 2 years of rebuilding my life. 2 years of skipped vacations, cheap groceries, late nights freelancing, repairing old computers in my cramped apartment for extra cash. And in return, I got told my place was in the trash. I should have felt stupid. Instead, I felt clear. Then, I remembered the car. 3 years earlier, Emily had lost her job and cried to me about missing interviews because her transmission died. I gave her my old Honda Civic temporarily while I bought myself a battered pickup truck that sounded like it was coughing up screws every morning. She promised she would pay me back once she got stable. She never did. After she got promoted last year, she stopped even pretending the Civic belonged to me. She drove it everywhere. took road trips with Jason in it, posted photos leaning against it like she had bought it herself. But the title? Still in my name. I checked twice, just to enjoy the certainty. By noon, I was on the phone with a towing company. The guy sounded bored until I explained I had the title and spare key. "So you want it brought to your address?" "No," I said calmly. "Just hold it for pickup." Around 4 o'clock, my phone exploded. Emily called 6 times in 10 minutes. Then came the voicemail. "Mara, what the hell? Did you seriously tow my car? I was at the grocery store. Jason had to come get me. You can't just steal it back." Steal. That word echoed in my head. Not once did she ask why I was hurt. Not once did she care what Jason had done. But the second something was taken from her, suddenly I mattered. Jason texted next. "Grow up. You're ruining her life over a joke." I almost admired the consistency. That evening, my father showed up unannounced. I saw him through the peephole pacing outside my apartment, like a man rehearsing disappointment. When I opened the door, he walked inside without asking, hands shoved into the pockets of his old brown jacket. "You need to give the car back," he said immediately. "She can use Jason's." His jaw tightened. "You gave it to her." "I loaned it to her." "There's no difference." "There is when the title says my name." He rubbed his forehead like I was exhausting him. "That used to work on me. Not anymore." His eyes drifted toward the dining table where my wedding payment folder sat open. "What's all this?" "Proof." He flipped through the pages without really reading them. Numbers made him uncomfortable when they challenged the family mythology. "You're punishing your sister over one bad joke?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm punishing her for standing there while it happened." Silence stretched between us. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. Finally, he sighed. "You're acting like a stranger, Mara. This isn't how family behaves." I laughed before I could stop myself. Not because it was funny, because hearing that from him felt surreal. When my financial aid collapsed during my second year of college and I had to drop out, nobody offered help. I worked double shifts and sold furniture online just to keep my apartment. Emily told me to hustle harder. My parents told me struggle built character. Family, apparently, only flowed one direction. He left a few minutes later without another word, and for the first time in my life, I did not feel guilty watching him go. 2 days passed. I said nothing. That silence drove them insane. Jason started posting passive-aggressive nonsense online about fake people and jealousy ruining marriages. Emily reposted one of them with a smiling beach photo captioned, "Removing toxic energy from our lives." I stared at it while eating instant noodles at midnight and actually laughed out loud. Because beneath the filters and captions, I knew exactly what was happening. Money problems, stress, fear. The missing $10,000 was not emotional to them. It was structural, a hole in the floorboards. Then my mother called again. This time, her voice was softer, practiced. "Honey, maybe everyone was emotional that day. We shouldn't let a misunderstanding tear the family apart. Why don't you come by Saturday? I'll make blueberry cobbler." Blueberry cobbler. Her oldest trick. Sugar layered over manipulation. "What do you really want?" I asked. Silence. Then she sighed. "Emily and Jason are under a little pressure financially." Of course they were. There it is. "Mara, no. You didn't even let me ask." I already know the answer. Later that night, Emily texted me directly. "Can we please fix this before Jason's parents start asking questions?" I stared at the message for a long time. Not before we lose each other. Not because I hurt you. Before people start asking questions. Image. Optics. Appearance. That was all any of this had ever been to them. So on Sunday morning, I sent one message to the family group chat. Since everyone seems confused, here's clarification. The Honda Civic legally belongs to me. Emily still owes me money from multiple loans over the years. I've decided to sell the car and recover part of what I'm owed. If anyone disagrees, we can handle it through court. My father left the group chat within 30 seconds. My mother never replied. Emily called instantly. I answered this time. You can't be serious, she snapped, voice cracking. That's my only transportation. You have a husband. Jason can't drive me to work every day. Then maybe you shouldn't have spent $36,000 on a wedding you couldn't afford. Dead silence. Then quietly, almost trembling, she said, I never thought you'd turn against me. I leaned back against the kitchen counter and closed my eyes. When I was drowning financially, you told me to work harder. That's different. No, I said. It just wasn't happening to you. She started crying then, real crying this time. But something inside me had already hardened beyond reach. I ended the call. The next morning, Jason pounded on my apartment door hard enough to rattle the frame. I didn't open it. I called the non-emergency police line instead. By the time an officer arrived, Jason was standing in the parking lot, yelling about unstable women and psycho behavior. The officer listened for about 30 seconds before telling him to leave. I watched through the blinds as Jason stormed toward his car, face red with humiliation. And for the first time since the wedding, I smiled. Not because I enjoyed hurting them, but because they were finally learning something I had known my entire life. Actions cost something. A week later, I sold the Civic for $8,700. The man who bought it was a college student with nervous eyes and careful hands. He counted the cash twice in my apartment parking lot while apologizing for taking so long. I almost told him not to apologize. People who had less somehow always apologized more. After he drove away, I stood there for a minute, staring at the empty parking space, feeling strangely calm. The money went straight toward my credit card debt, overdue bills, and a new laptop that didn't sound like it was moments from exploding every time I opened Photoshop or a repair program. Nothing glamorous, nothing emotional, just survival. Meanwhile, my family was collapsing in slow motion. My mother sent one final message saying I had gone too far. Then silence swallowed the rest. My father disappeared into the background the way he always did when things became uncomfortable. Emily and Jason, though, they were loud. People in failing relationships usually are. Jason started posting fake motivational quotes online about betrayal and loyalty. Emily uploaded smiling selfies that looked increasingly forced, like she was trying to convince herself she was happy before anyone else. But cracks always show, especially when money disappears. A cousin of mine, Vanessa, invited me out for drinks one Friday night. She was one of the few relatives who never treated me like a walking ATM with feelings attached. The bar was dim and noisy, smelling faintly of citrus and old wood. Vanessa slid a margarita toward me the second I sat down. You've become family legend, she said. That sounds ominous. It is, I laughed softly and took a sip. Then she lowered her voice. Emily's telling everyone you sabotaged her marriage. Interesting, I said. Jason seems fully capable of doing that himself. Vanessa snorted into her drink. She's asking people for money, Mara. Quietly. She hit up Aunt Denise yesterday, claimed you abandoned her after promising financial support. That made me pause. Support? Vanessa unlocked her phone and showed me screenshots. Emily. I just need temporary help until things stabilize. Jason's under so much pressure. Mara completely turned on me. I stared at the messages without feeling much of anything anymore. No guilt, no heartbreak, just distance. She still thinks this is about money, I murmured. Vanessa looked at me carefully. Isn't it? No, I said quietly. The money was just proof. On the drive home, I rolled the windows down and let cold air flood the truck. For years, I had confused sacrifice with love. I thought if I gave enough, helped enough, stayed patient enough, eventually my family would treat me like I mattered beyond what I could provide. But people get comfortable standing on your back if you never move, and now they were furious because I finally had. A few days later, things got even uglier. I still had admin access to the old shared family Google Drive. Years ago, I created it to organize tax forms, medical records, repair receipts, family photos, all the boring things nobody else wanted to manage. Apparently, no one remembered I still had access, or maybe they simply never thought about me enough to care. Inside were wedding spreadsheets, payment plans, honeymoon reservations, and loan documents. I didn't alter anything. I just read. And what I found explained everything. Jason had taken out a private loan, expecting my $10,000 gift to close the gap afterward. Without it, they defaulted on several honeymoon payments. Their Santorini resort reservation had already been canceled. Emily's work situation was worse too. She had been formally warned for using company hours to plan the wedding. They weren't struggling, they were sinking. Then my mother called again. This time she sounded tired, not remorseful. Tired. "Your father and I are helping Emily with some of the debt," she said carefully. "We were wondering if maybe you could contribute a little more until things settle." I nearly dropped the phone from disbelief. "You want me to pay more?" "It's not like that." "How is it like?" "She's your sister." I stared out the kitchen window at the gray afternoon sky. "Do you remember what Jason said to me at the wedding?" Silence. "He was stressed," she whispered finally. "And you know how men can be." "No," I said coldly. "I want you to say exactly what he did." Another silence. She could not do it, because admitting it out loud would force her to acknowledge she allowed it. "I'm not giving Emily another $1, I said. "Actually, she still owes me $500 for the rehearsal dinner deposit. Tell her Venmo works fine." My mother hung up on me. That weekend, my business finally started picking up. For months, I'd been quietly building something out of a rented corner space behind an auto repair shop. Custom PCs, refurbished parts, repair consulting, small business tech support. Nothing flashy, but it was mine. And people were starting to notice. Tuesday morning, my manager walked into the back workspace looking uncomfortable. "There's an older couple out front asking for you," he said. "Pretty sure they're your parents." I closed the server case I'd been working on and stepped outside. My father stood stiffly beside my mother in the parking lot. She clutched a thick manila folder against her chest, like she was carrying legal evidence. My stomach tightened immediately. Not because I was nervous, because I already knew this was not a visit about reconciliation. My father got straight to the point. "We're refinancing the house." I frowned. "The family house?" "Yes," my mother said quickly, "to help Emily and Jason get stable again." Then she held out the folder. "But your name is still attached to part of the trust paperwork. We need signatures." There it was. Not concern, not apology. Paperwork. I looked at the folder, but didn't touch it. "You want me to sign away my share of Grandpa's house to save Jason?" "It's temporary," my mother insisted. My father crossed his arms. "You don't even live there anymore." I laughed softly under my breath. A year earlier, when I wanted help returning to school, nobody offered to refinance anything for me. Nobody even offered me a couch. But for Emily, suddenly the family home was negotiable. I looked directly at my father. "If I'd asked for help back then, would you have done this for me?" Neither of them answered. That silence was the only answer I needed. I turned around and walked back toward the building. "Mara!" my mother called desperately. I stopped without facing her. "I'm done financing this family." Then I went inside. That night, Jason texted me again. Only this time, he sounded scared. "You illegally accessed our private files. I'm talking to a lawyer. You've crossed the line." I leaned back in my chair and smiled faintly. Jason always sounded toughest right before panic set in. Then came the final message. "I swear to God, I'll ruin your reputation too." That one interested me. Not because it frightened me, because it gave me permission. One of my early tech clients was a retired cybersecurity consultant named Walter. Brilliant. Paranoid. The kind of man who treated internet history like archaeology. I called him the next morning. "I need a favor." 2 days later, Walter sent me a compressed folder with a single message beneath it. "Your sister married an idiot." Inside were archived profiles, forum accounts, old resumes, and cached pages Jason apparently forgot existed. And buried in all of it was something beautiful. Jason had lied about his degree. Not exaggerated, not embellished, flat out invented it. He claimed a master's degree in business administration on both LinkedIn and his company records. In reality, he never even finished community college. I sat there staring at the evidence while rain hammered softly against my apartment windows. Revenge is strange. Movies make it look explosive, but the real kind, the dangerous kind, it's quiet. Careful. Patient. So I waited. 2 weeks later, Emily texted me a single word. "Please." I ignored it. 4 hours later, my mother sent the exact same word. Please. I still said nothing. Then Vanessa called. Mara, she said breathlessly. Jason got fired. I stayed quiet. Someone anonymously reported the fake degree to HR. They investigated everything. Outside my window, thunder rolled across the sky. Vanessa lowered her voice. They can't make rent now. Emily might move back in with your parents. I closed my eyes slowly. The entire structure was collapsing exactly the way unstable things always do. Not all at once, piece by piece. And they still didn't understand the truth. None of this started when I took back the money. It started the moment they decided I would always stay quiet. By the time autumn arrived, I had stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. The silence no longer felt sharp. It felt earned. Most nights, I worked late in the repair shop behind the auto garage, surrounded by open computer towers and the steady hum of cooling fans. There was comfort in fixing things that made sense. Broken hardware could be diagnosed. Damaged systems could be rebuilt. People were harder, especially family. One rainy Thursday night, I sat alone at my desk long after closing, staring at a blank document glowing on my screen. I already knew what I was going to write before my fingers touched the keyboard. This wasn't revenge anymore. Revenge had already happened. Jason lost his job. Emily lost her apartment. My parents refinanced the family home, trying to rescue a marriage that was rotting from the inside. No, this was something else. Closure. I started typing carefully. Formal withdrawal from the Collins Family Trust. No emotional speeches. No dramatic accusations. Just facts. I stated clearly that I wanted my name removed from every future family financial obligation, property arrangement, inheritance discussion, and shared liability. I attached copies of every major payment I had made over the past 5 years. Wedding deposits, emergency loans, car records, unpaid transfers. At the bottom, I added a simple financial breakdown. Total contributed to family support, $41,870. Total repaid, $0. I stared at the numbers for a long time. Not because they shocked me, because seeing them all together finally forced me to confront how much of myself I had poured into people who only loved me when I was useful. The final sentence took the longest. Eventually, I typed, "You already chose who mattered in this family. I'm finally choosing myself." That was it. No love always. No sincerely. Just the truth. I mailed 3 copies the next morning. 1 to my parents. 1 to Emily. 1 to the attorney whose name I found buried in the wedding vendor dispute paperwork. I wanted a paper trail. Something permanent. Then I disappeared. I blocked every family number I had left. Changed my email. Switched phone plans. Even deleted old social media accounts I barely used anymore. At first, the silence felt unnatural, like phantom pain after losing a limb. Then slowly, beautifully, it became peaceful. Around the same time, a business opportunity I'd been quietly building toward finally became real. A tech refurbishment company in Portland offered me a full-time operations position after months of freelance work. Inventory management, logistics, expansion planning. Real salary. Health insurance. Equity in the company. The kind of opportunity people like me spend years clawing toward. I accepted immediately. 2 weeks later, I packed everything I owned into a rented van and drove north alone. No goodbye dinner. No emotional farewell. Just highway lights stretching endlessly ahead of me, while the old version of my life disappeared in the rearview mirror. The first morning in Portland, fog rolled across the bridge outside my apartment, while I drank burnt coffee from a paper cup and listened to rain tapping softly against the window. For the first time in years, nobody needed something from me. I cannot explain how quiet that felt. Vanessa was the only relative I stayed in contact with. A week after I moved, she texted, "You alive?" I sent her a picture of the rainy skyline and replied, "Better than ever." Over the following months, she filled me in occasionally. Not because I asked. Because disaster makes people talk. Jason tried applying for another management job using the same fake degree. Someone forwarded his former employer's HR report to the new company before the interview process finished. Blacklisted. Emily moved back into her childhood bedroom after they lost the apartment. Jason bounced between friends' couches until even they got tired of him. My parents refinanced the house exactly like they threatened to. Retirement savings disappeared into wedding debt, loan payments, and Jason's credit cards. It still wasn't enough. My father started working nights doing warehouse security. My mother took out a personal loan with horrifying interest rates just to stay afloat. Vanessa said Thanksgiving turned into a disaster. My mother cried at the dinner table talking about family hardships, while Emily locked herself in the bathroom halfway through dessert. And through all of it, not one of them admitted how any of this began. Not with money. Not with the car. Not even with the wedding. It started years earlier. Every time they taught me my pain mattered less than keeping the peace. Every time they called me selfish for having limits. Every time they treated my support like an obligation instead of a gift. People like that don't suddenly change because life punishes them. They only become desperate. About 6 months after I moved, I received one final email from Emily. I almost deleted it unread. Almost. The message was long and emotional. She talked about childhood memories, old Christmas mornings, inside jokes we shared as kids. She said families fight, but eventually heal. She claimed Jason was working on himself. Then came the line that mattered most. I miss how things used to be. I read it twice. Not because I was tempted. Because I realized she still didn't understand. The old days she missed were built on my silence. On my sacrifice. On my willingness to absorb humiliation so everyone else could stay comfortable. She did not miss me. She missed access to me. I deleted the email. Then I closed my laptop and went back to work. Outside the office windows, rain drifted softly through the Portland streets, while forklifts beeped somewhere in the warehouse below. My employees laughed about something near the loading dock. My life was small in some ways. Quiet apartment. Long hours. Cheap coffee. But it belonged to me. And that mattered more than any apology they suddenly wanted to offer once their world started sinking. People think revenge is loud.
Explosive. Cruel.
But sometimes, revenge is simply refusing to drown alongside the people who kept pushing your head underwater. I gave my family everything I had for years. Money. Time.
Loyalty. Forgiveness.
And when I finally stopped, they collapsed under the weight of their own choices. Not because I destroyed them, because I was no longer carrying them.